sea is your home before your birth and after your death. Our hearts beat in the womb of the world. Our breath burns in the shadows of the deep. The sea gives and the sea takes. Water connects all things. Life to death. Darkness to light.
everyone, it's Area of Effect with another out-of-the-box build. This time a Magicka Warden, the Tides of the Siren build. I wanted to model a build basically off of sea and storm and waves and water, and I think I did that here on this one. It's a very group-oriented and beneficial build, and everything that you do revolves around storm, water, and the sea. And check this out. I'll do it in slow-mo here. One of the sets we are wearing is going to provide a huge debuff to the enemy, but also a nice wave. You see the water on my forearms? You bash it off. There's a wave that rips through all the enemies and also marks them with this pink smoke, which is going to give them major vulnerability, increasing their damage taken by 10%. And everybody, including your team, is going to reap the benefits of that debuff. And you can't have a sea siren without some ocean thunderstorms and lightning storms, right? So there's a lot of that on this build, lightning and AOE, and you might think to put this on a Sork with the lightning already, but I wanted it on a Warden for the magic and the frost. Even in PvP here, check it out, bam, everybody got the pink smoke with the tidal wave. They're all given major vulnerability, and with the permafrost ultimate, there's so much snaring potential keeping them all together. Shulk stripping them down for your team as well. Huge group benefit. Take a look at the stat screen on the sword and board bar. 30k max match, 32 max health, 30,000 resistances while still having some pretty good offensive power, over 4k weapon and spell damage. On the front bar, we've got just under 30k max magicka, but the penetration that you see, almost 6, you got to add 9,000 to that for the Shulks, because we're using the Shulks to give them major and minor breach. Jumping right into the gear now, our lightning staff is the Asylum's lightning staff, sharpened with the Berserker glyph. I wanted to use something that I was already going to be using on the skill bar, which was Crushing Shock, Force Pulse. You could use Vatishran, you could use Masters or Maelstrom if you have these 2-piece specials, but I'm using the Shulks to give a major and minor breach already, so I didn't want to use the Vatishran for elemental weakness. And Masters, I could have done that, but I really wanted the Force Pulse. I just love weaving that when necessary. A lot of AoEs, so we went with the Lightning Staff on this one to buff all the AoE damage. It was an option to use a Frost Staff, because as a Warden, you increase your damage done by 12% as a passive with a Frost Staff, but I really liked that channel of the heavy attacks. The monster set, Kargata, this one's really awesome. It has a double, basically dot AoE that moves forward, physical and lightning damage, but at the same time, you're going to be giving your teammates and yourself a big buff, or I should say a benefit, reducing all of their stamina and magicka costs by 10% while in this. This will proc on command with a heavy attack. I just love this set. It moves forward like a whirlwind, looks like a big drain moving forward, but you stay in it, it deals damage like I said, physical and fraud and magic, and then you've got the big 10% cost reduction. But I'll show a set here that coupled with that very nicely in a minute as an option. Look at that moving forward. Draugr works well on this as well with this set, because you're getting 2 dots and 1 proc and a big AoE, so Draugr applies its benefit. And I did mess with Draugr a good bit, and you still could use this in place of one of the sets, but yeah, Kargata, I like this on this build. If you don't have Kargata, and you want to use something like Storm Fist or Molag Kina or something that was more theme-based, but Storm Fist works great. But I like Kargata on this one for the group benefit. The first 5-piece set we're using is Overwhelming Surge. We've got the 4 and 5-piece in Sword and Board. We switched to that bar and we proc this immediately. 665 shock damage to all enemies within 8 meters. It's pretty much close to 100% uptime, and you get 15% of the damage it deals back as magicka. So it's just another thing to kind of lead into more magicka recovery. It's got a pretty good distance. Look at that. You can see the lightning tethers to all 3 of those targets. So I like this. You could use in place of Overwhelming Surge. I thought about Storm Knight. It's another heavy set though. And you don't get magicka back. Thunderbug or even Draugr was a good set, like I was telling you guys about when I was displaying Kargata. The next 5-piece set And the backbone of this build, the Turning Tide set, it's heavy. When you block, you gain flowing water for 10 seconds, okay? And then the next bash you do, you'll send that wave out like I showed earlier, giving all enemies in the area not only some bash damage as that water flows through them, but major vulnerability. I've got it on my heavy pieces, greaves and boots, and the light pieces of overwhelming gloves and belt. That's to optimize the resistances you get from the heavy, medium, and light piece count. Amulet of Turning Tide, you see these are still blue. An overwhelming surge ring. Now, I wanted to, and I tested out Sea Serpent's Coil on this, and you can wear this. Overwhelming on one side, Turning Tide on the other side, like Destro Staff, with Sea Serpent as a necklace, still wear a monster, and still have one piece extra like for Trainee or Druid. But I just went with the Asylum instead. Thundercaller, I'm just showing some other 5-piece options in place of Overwhelming. There's Draugr. You see the extra 330 damage per tick, a lot of damage over time, so that actually adds up to a lot of things, from the Shulks to the Fetcherfly Swarm we'll get into, Kargata, double dot poisons, the heavy attack, just pretty much everything. It's a great option, but I went with, like I said, Overwhelming Surge and Turning Tide. I loved the effect and the magicka back from it. Take a look at the skills now on the sword and board bar. The first one is Arctic Blast. It heals you for almost 10k, deals a damage over time around you for 20 seconds, and also stuns the enemy on the first cast. Now this is going to change. It's going to stun after a 2-second delay come the Necrom update, but we're still going to use this. It's going to be kind of a minimal impact. The next skill, Living Trellis, basically wrap vines around you for 10 seconds. Every time you're hit, you take damage, you heal for 2,500 health, and then at the end of the skill, whether it's casted early when it's spammed or if it goes throughout its entire duration, you get another burst heal from that. You could use something else in place of that. That's kind of like your free skill. You want to use Nature's Embrace. You want to use something like maybe from the Sigic skill line, the Time Stopper. It's up to you guys. The next skill, we are using Lotus Blossom. It's going to buff our light. Give us major Savagery and Prophecy, increasing our crit chance, okay? But then the light and heavy attacks we deal are going to heal us while it's active. So we always have this up with these heavy attacks we're doing with the Lightning Staff. The next skill, you get your crit it's a whole minute long, by the way, too. So I liked that. The next skill is going to be the Fetcherfly. We're on the sword and board bar. The Bullnetch gives us our major brutality, major sorcery. We pick the Stamina Morph to get more stamina back over its duration. It also cleanses you every 5 seconds, or you could spam it and cleanse every second pretty much upon your next cast. Cleanse and cleanse and cleanse. But I picked the stamina one because, hey, look, when you're blocking and whatnot, you can't restore stamina, so you can this way. Ice Fortress, major resolve, major ward, 6,000 resistance pretty much for 30 seconds, but it's also going to give us minor protection. But again, another group benefit, you can give your allies major resolve, major ward with this one. Precognition, we have this slotted to where basically we can backtrack 4 seconds ago, whatever our position was and our resources were at. I picked the Morph where I could cast it even while I am CC'd, stunned, immobilized. That's great when you are basically at the end of the line, you get stunned, you don't have stamina, you can't break free to get up to cast. Well, you can cast it anyways. Now, speaking of ultimates, and I'm going to jump to the front bar real quick, even though we haven't gone over it. We are using Permafrost on the front bar. You can't beat that, I feel like. But you could slot the Ice Comet from Mage's Guild on the front bar, and that would put you on your stat screen over 30k max magicka because of the Mage's Guild passives, and give you a bit more recovery on the front bar. See right there. Now, earlier I showed the front bar, we were at like 29k. It's just a number in my head. I know it's weird, but if you wanted to do it that way and then slot on the sword and board bar, Permafrost, so you still have that big snaring storm. And maybe you don't have the Sigic skills, so you could do it that way. Or keep permafrost on the front bar, and on the back bar slot the forest for healing. But we went with the Psijic skill because of its passives. When you have one slotted like we do, you gain a damage shield that absorbs 5,000 damage. This can occur every 10 seconds. Looks cool, looks like a big sphere of water and magic, so you can't beat that. I'm sold. But let's go ahead and jump into the front bar now, the Destro bar. The first skill is Force Pulse. I like this one over Crushing Shock because it isn't often you're going to interrupt. And on this one, I do like the splash damage, the almost 8,000 damage that another nearby enemy will take when they are also under the effect of a status effect. Now, they are breached. I always start with Shocks because I want that 9,000 armor reduction, so I'm hitting 9,000 penetration harder. But see how he's burning? So if I hit that's a status effect, a burning status effect. I hit this guy, and he's got the swarm of the Fetcher Flies for minor vulnerability. And you'll see that white beam bounces from one target to another. That's a great, in PvP, they're always affected with a status effect, even if it's not your own. So I just love that skill to weave it with light attacks or end a heavy attack pull with it. Resolving Vigor, it's our stamina heal, 17,000 health over 5 seconds, but we also get that minor resolve, that's going to increase our resistances by 3,000, putting us up to 30k on our sword and board bar. Growing Swarm, I picked this one. It's a stamina morph instead of the other one that's Magicka. It's going to deal damage over time to an enemy, also give them minor vulnerability, increasing their damage taken by 5%. But I like that I picked this morph because it's an AoE. You see the big circle around the ogre pretty much. It's encompassing both the bird and the other Bone Lord dummy. They're both getting the damage by just being close to the primary target. So I wanted to be able to cast this one time versus, cast and cast and cast to different enemies. The Shocks we talked about, well, we didn't talk about it, but I've said it a number of times. You got to have this on this build. Strips them down at the bottom, 6,000 and 3,000 for 10 seconds. That's insane. It's going to roll out twice after a 6-second delay from the first one, and it deals a big chunk of damage to the targets in addition to stripping them down. Look at the damage here when it crits. 12,000, almost 13,000. Yeah, I've seen Shocks higher, but for what we're doing, another big group benefit. I mean, we're able to heal our group members. We're able to basically strip down the enemy for our group members. Major vulnerability, minor vulnerability, major resolve, major ward for our teammates. It's just insane. Crystallized Slab, I couldn't get on this build or buy without this skill. You cast these shields around you. I tried the one that gives the major heroism, but I just loved this one too much. The one that fires back a icy bolt. You're basically a ranged immortal pretty much with this skill. Nobody can snipe you. Nobody can kill you. Going up against a Sork or going up against a Nightblade, it's not going to matter. Hit me with that Toxic Barrage and you're dead. The next skill, Permafrost. So this one, 2,000 frost damage every second for 12 seconds. The other morph gives you 7 seconds, but this one snares you by 70%, okay, which is insane. But then look here, the chilled status effect, once I buff up here, under the Warden passives, is going to increase the damage of chilled by 1,071, okay, 1,071. And this morph, Permafrost, as part of it, it says applies the chilled status effect. It's not a chance, it's a guaranteed. So you got to add that to this dot. So it's like 3,000 damage a second. So it just, I think, completely obliterates Northern Storm and its functionality. That 70% snare, it's a death trap. You're not getting out of it. They're going to stay in all of your storms, all of your tornadoes and tidal waves. So let's check out the champion point distribution now. Jumping right into the blue tree, Biting Aura is our first one. Increase area of effect damage by 6%. That is pretty much everything we do. literally on this build, so you got to have that one. Endless Endurance, I went with this one. You don't have to for the extra stamina, especially in PvP. I just wanted to get my pool higher on top of those recoveries. Untamed Aggression increases our weapon and spell damage by 150, just making everything we do, including healing, hit a bit harder. Arcane Supremacy, helping us reach that 30,000 magicka mark. Like I told you, I'm OCD about most of the time. There are some builds that just, it doesn't matter to be there. But jumping into the red tree, the resistances, sustained by suffering, 150 health, magicka, and stamina recovery while affected by a negative effect. That's all the time in PvP. You could do the bracing anchor, since we are using a sword and shield for 20% block mitigation, but let's just move on. Rejuvenation at an additional 90 health, magicka, and stamina recovery at all times. Coupled with sustained by suffering, we got a lot of recoveries on this build, keeping us going like the Energizer Bunny. Fortified, 1,700 additional armor. That speaks for itself. And Boundless Vitality, 1,400 max health, helping us go above and beyond 30,000 easily, especially with the Warden's minor toughness passive that they get. So that is going to wrap up the CP distribution and also wrap up this build video, the Tides of the Siren build. If you like this build and you want to see more, head on over to my channel. I've got plenty of content on there. Builds of all types, tanks, healers, damage dealers, every class, magicka, stamina, hybrids, and some non-build related material. And I've got plenty more builds on the way. Anyway, if you, like, subscribe, share, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of this build or what you would do differently. And stay tuned. I've got a lot of cool builds coming for the Necrom update coming out soon. So, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Area of Effect, signing out.